Order, please. We'll start today's proceedings and welcome everybody back to the House for a new week. And before we start the daily routine, I'm going to recognize the Honourable Minister of Community Services.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to just take this opportunity to table information and a report. It's the Minister's Advisory Committee on Children and Family Services Act and the Adoption Information Act. The honourable member from Cape Breton South had inquired about this information, and I would like to table it, a copy for himself and a top copy for the House.
Okay, thank you. The information is tabled. We'll start the daily routine, presenting and reading petitions. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to table a petition on behalf of 655 signatories from Nova Scotia, the operative clause which reads, "We, the undersigned, want the Nova Scotia government to re-examine their decision to withhold covering Lucentis injections for all Nova Scotians afflicted with macular degeneration, and we want the government to provide us with the same level of health care that everyone in the rest of Canada enjoys." And, Mr. Speaker, I have affixed my signature to this petition along with caucus colleagues.
The petition is tabled. Any further petitions? Presenting reports of committees. Tabling reports, regulations, and other papers. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg leave to table the 209 Year 209 Annual Report of the Nova Scotia Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Review Office.
The report is tabled. Any further reports, regulations, or other papers? Statements by ministers. Government notices of motion. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I introduce this resolution on behalf of the Minister of Education, Labour and Workforce Development. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas in 2009, almost 1,000 workers under the age of 24 were injured seriously enough in the workplace to lose time from work. And whereas in an effort to reverse this trend, 330 students from across the province participated in the Workplace Health and Safety Pilot Curriculum, which teaches grade 9 students about the importance of workplace safety and how they can prevent injuries on the job. And whereas this workplace safety module will be introduced into the compulsory Healthy Living 9 course this coming school year, where all grade 9 students from across the province will gain the knowledge, skills, and positive reinforcement they need to make confident decisions about safety on the cusp of their entry into the workforce. Therefore, be it resolved that the Nova Scotia Legislature congratulate the teachers and students for completing a successful pilot and thank Workers' Compensation for its partnership in developing this important workplace safety curriculum that will work to decrease workplace injuries in this province. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Tourism, Culture and Heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I should move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Cambridge Suites in Sydney has been rated by travellers as the top hotel in Canada and 9th in the world, and whereas the ranking comes from the Expedia 2010 Insiders Select results, an annual ranking of the world's best hotels for quality and value as determined primarily by traveller reviews, and whereas Cambridge Suites in Sydney has exceeded customer expectations in customer service, amenities, cooperative, competitive pricing, and overall customer satisfaction. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House congratulate management and staff of the Cambridge Suites Sydney on this award and wish them continued success during this tourism season. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I'm reading this resolution on behalf of the Minister of Natural Resources. I hereby give notice that on a future day, I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Nova Scotia Department of Natural Resources is pleased to celebrate 2010 National Mining Week's theme, Canada's Mining Resources, creating jobs and opportunity for a sustainable future, from May 10th to 16th, and whereas this celebration is a time to recognize the important role the mining industry has played in our lives for centuries, and whereas today's modern mining industry provides technology, training, jobs, schools, hospitals and homes, while ensuring the impact on the environment is minimal. Therefore, be it resolved that all members join in the celebration of National Mining Week and recognizing the mining industry plays an important role in creating good jobs and growing our economy. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Environment.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the province of Nova Scotia has adopted a disposable target of 300 kilograms a person each year by 2015, and whereas waste diversion programs such as recycling and composting are good for the environment and help create local green jobs, and whereas adoption of clear bag program for garbage can significantly increase recycling and composting rates and reduce our dependency on landfills. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House congratulate all the municipalities who have adopted or are considering adopting clear bag programs for garbage collection. Mr. Speaker, request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleague, the Minister of Health Promotion and Protection, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas hemochromatosis is the most common genetic disorder affecting Canadians, and whereas complications of this crippling and potentially fatal metabolic disorder are preventable by early diagnosis and treatment, and whereas May is Hemochromatosis Awareness Month, therefore be it resolved that all members of this House acknowledge the work of the Canadian Hemochromatosis Society and its efforts to educate people about the condition and reduce the suffering of those affected by it. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. Introduction of bills. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. On behalf of my colleague from Cumberland South, I would like to beg leave to introduce a bill, an act to amend Chapter 27 of the Acts of 1998, the Wilderness Areas Protection Act.
The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party, on behalf of the member from Cumberland South, begs leave to introduce a bill, an act to amend Chapter 27 of the Acts of 1998, the Wilderness Areas Protection Act.
Bill 70, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 27 of the Acts of 1998, the Wilderness Areas Protection Act.
Order this bill be read a second time on a future day. The Honourable Member for Bedford Birch Cove.
Mr. Speaker, I beg leave to introduce a bill entitled An Act to Require the Establishment of a Mandatory Early Development Instrument Assessment Program in Nova Scotia.
Bring it up. The Honourable Member for Bedford Birch Cove begs leave to introduce a bill, an act to require the establishment of a mandatory early development instrument assessment program in Nova Scotia.
Bill 71, title An Act to require the establishment of a mandatory early development and instrument assessment program in Nova Scotia.
Order this bill be read a second time on a future day. Any further introduction of bills? Notices of motion. The Honourable Leader of the Official Opposition.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the federal government has proclaimed 2010 the year of the British home child to recognize the contribution of 100,000 British orphans who made their way to Canada to work as farm labourers and servants between 1869 and 1948. And whereas these children faced tremendous adversity, often separated from siblings and left vulnerable to mistreatment and abuse, and whereas the Middlemore Atlantic Society aims to educate Canadians about the role that these children played in our history and recognize the estimated 10,000 home children still living in Canada, therefore be it resolved that this House commend the efforts of the Middlemore Atlantic Society to recognize the British home children as an important part of Canada's history and voice its support for the year of the British home child. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the 95-year-old Five Islands Lighthouse has been moved 4 times since it was first built, and whereas the Five Islands Lighthouse Society rescued the lighthouse from demolition in 1966 and in 2008 moved it from Sandpoint Campground to Broderick Lane, and whereas the Nova Scotia Lighthouse Preservation Society presented the Craig Harding Lighthouse Preservation Award in Halifax this last week to the Five Islands Lighthouse Society, therefore be it resolved all members of this House of Assembly congratulate the Five Islands Lighthouse Society for winning the prestigious Provincial Heritage Award and recognizing the outstanding work the Society has done to preserve this historic structure. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice, passage without debate. There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Premier.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Cole Harbour Pee-wee AAA Wings raised the funds to travel to Quebec City earlier this month to compete in the Quebec International BSR Minor Hockey Tournament, and whereas the team won the gold medal in the tournament, and whereas they are only the second Pee-wee team from Cole Harbour to win a tournament in Quebec, the first being captained by Sidney Crosby in 2000. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House recognize the achievements of the Cole Harbour Pee-wee AAA Wings and congratulate the players and coaches on their gold medal win. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Kings West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas over 700 Yarmouth Liberals held their nomination meeting on Saturday to select their candidate for the upcoming by-election, and whereas Zach Churchill won the nomination after delivering a passionate speech stressing the challenges facing the region and his commitment to work for the people of Yarmouth, and whereas Zach represents a new generation, as he recognized during his speech, often it is our youth that serve as our impetus for change, that challenge us to reinvent ourselves, that offer the energy we need to bring about new beginnings. Therefore, be it resolved, the House congratulates Zach Churchill on his nomination and urge the Premier to call the by-election to ensure the people of Yarmouth have an elected representative as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver, passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Victoria the Lakes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Canada's labour shortage is being described by strategists as an economic time bomb, and whereas Prime Minister Stephen Harper is on record as saying the labour shortage will be Canada's #1 economic problem within the next few years, and whereas Nova Scotia's Minister of Labour and Workforce Development said in this legislature last Wednesday that worker numbers are changing daily as to the extent of the labour shortage Nova Scotians will be facing in the next couple of years. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly request the Minister and her government immediately outline a detailed strategy working plan as to how her NDP government will be addressing this serious economic problem. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? I hear several noes. The motion is tabled. The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas on May 10th, 1970, legendary Boston Bruins defenseman Robert Gordon Orr want me to start again, Mr. Speaker?
No, you may continue on from where you're at.
We just like you to leave.
Whereas legendary Boston Bruins defenseman Robert Gordon Orr scored the goal winning the Stanley Cup for that unforgettable NHL season. Whereas Bobby Orr revolutionized the game of hockey during his too short playing career. Whereas loyal Bruins fans cling to the memory of the goal scored 40 years ago tonight in St. Louis. Therefore, be it resolved that the Nova Scotia Legislature recognize Bobby Orr's Cup-winning goal on May 10, 1970, with best wishes to Bruins fans in their team's quest to capture another Stanley Cup. Waiver, Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? I hear some no's. The motion is tabled. The Honourable Member for Hants West.
I think we should read that over again.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas McHappy Day was held at McDonald's restaurants across the Annapolis Valley last Wednesday in support of Camp Brigadoon and Ronald McDonald House. And whereas there are 7 McDonald's restaurants in the Annapolis Valley in Windsor, Colebrook, Greenwood, and 2 each in Numinus and Digby. And whereas the assistance of some fantastic help in Windsor from the Family Resource Centre, staff from the Canadian Imperial Bank of Commerce, Kings Edge Hill, and the Windsor Fire Department, a total of $2,549 was raised, while nearly $10,000 was raised in total across the Annapolis Valley. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly recognize the caring community spirit of the owners and staff of McDonald's restaurants in the Annapolis Valley and for their contribution to 2 worthwhile projects which assist many individuals and families. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. I'm going to recognize the Honourable Member for Halifax Atlantic on an introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'd like to draw the attention to the gallery to my good friend and relative, Judy Guernsey. Judy Guernsey is a professor in the Faculty of Medicine at Dalhousie, and she's the director of the Centre for Rural Health. They've just recently received major funding to establish a world-class laboratory in environmental health, indoor and outdoor air quality, and through the Canadian Foundation for Innovation. And I hope that you'll all give Dr. Guernsey a welcome and hope that her work will continue to benefit the people of Nova Scotia, inside and out.
We welcome all our visitors here this afternoon. The Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Annapolis Valley Regional Science Fair took place from March the 29th to April the 1st, 2010 at the NSCC King's Tech campus, attracting 150 entries from all age levels, and whereas Roman Kazutsky of Wolfville School won an Acadia Life Science Award, the Bloomington Naturalist Award, and a gold medal in the Life of Sciences category for his project, The Spill on Dawn. And whereas, as a reward for this remarkable achievement, Roman will attend the Canada-wide Science Fair in Peterborough, Ontario from May 15th to the 23rd, 2010 as a representative of the Annapolis Valley. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House congratulate Roman Kazutsky for his remarkable dedication and achievement, wish him all the best as he competes on behalf of Nova Scotia at the Canada-wide Science Fair, and recognize the hard work of all students and staff in making the 2010 Annapolis Valley Science Fair a success. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Bedford Birch Cove.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I should move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Jeff McClellan is a Bay boy in the very fabric of his being and has a deep appreciation for the community of Glace Bay, and whereas Jeff has a world of experience to channel into his efforts as the MLA for Glace Bay, including being former executive assistant for Roger Cuzner, member of Parliament for Cape Breton-Canso, and whereas Jeff is a friendly, familiar face in the riding of Glace Bay who knows the issues affecting the area, where he has worked hard to increase the quality of life in his community as president of the Tablehead Development Society and as a member of the Savoy Theatre Society. Therefore, be it resolved that this House congratulate Jeff McClellan on his nomination as the Liberal candidate for Glace Bay and urge the Premier to call the by-election to ensure the people of Glace Bay have an elected representative as soon as possible. Mr. Speaker, I ask for a waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotia's Minister of Justice was quoted in Friday's Chronicle Herald as saying he saw no use for guns other than to kill or maim, and whereas the Minister of Justice, for some reason, refuses to recognize 87,000 Nova Scotians who participate in hunting in this province on an annual basis, generating $35 million for the provincial economy, and whereas the Minister has steadfastly refused to apologize for his ridiculous and hurtful comments while also being seemingly oblivious to the current legislation in Nova Scotia which respects the heritage tradition of hunting and recreational outdoor benefits. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly unanimously call upon the Minister of Justice to dig his head out of the sand and apologize to Nova Scotia's legal firearm owners.
The motion is tabled. The Honourable Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas volunteer fire departments provide a valuable service in rural communities, and whereas volunteers are essential to these rural fire departments, and whereas on April 23, 2010, the municipality of East Hants recognized Raymond Ross of Walton with a Shining Star Award for his efforts over many years with Walton Volunteer Fire Department and the Walton Lighthouse and Park. And therefore be resolved, this House of Assembly congratulates Raymond Ross on his Shining Star Award and thanks him for his example of community service. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas students from Digby Regional High School spent a night in the gym on April the 23rd without eating to raise money for the World Vision 30-hour famine. And whereas this is the 8th year that Digby Regional High School has participated and roughly 70 students took part to raise over $3,300. And whereas the fundraising method gives students a chance to experience hunger and raise money for the cause at the same time. Therefore, be it resolved, the members of the House of Assembly recognize these students for their sacrifice they have made to bring awareness to World Vision 30-hour famine and raise much-needed funds for this worthy cause. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Argyll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the treatment of CCSVI by angioplasty means to successfully treat multiple sclerosis. It's a Monday, I guess. Whereas on Wednesday, May 5th, the Premier and the Minister of Health were dismissive of pleas from the MS Liberation Organization and the member for Cape Breton West in seeking angioplasty treatment of CCSVI for multiple sclerosis. And whereas angioplasty for CCSVI is a current treatment for people who suffer from diabetes, hypertension, or blocked veins or arteries. So it is not an experimental treatment that the Premier and the Minister of Health claim it to be. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House join me in congratulating the Premier and the Minister of Health in receiving their medical degree, as obviously they know more about the treatment of MS using the liberation treatment than Dr. Paulo Samboni, doctors in the United States, Poland, Jordan, and Kuwait, and the current use of the procedure to treat other maladies in Canada. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? I hear several noes. The motion is tabled. The honourable member for Antigonish.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the United Nations adopted the Universal Declaration of Human Rights in 1948, declaring, quote, all human beings are born free and equal in dignity and rights, end quote, thereby solidifying fundamental freedoms and protection from unfair treatment. And whereas Nova Scotia protects human rights through the Human Rights Act and the work of the Human Rights Commission, and whereas Antigonish resident Patricia Skinner, an active community leader and past recipient of the Human Rights Award, was recently appointed to the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission for a 3-year term. Therefore, be it resolved that the House recognize and thank Ms. Skinner for her years of community work and her continued commitment to upholding human rights through the Nova Scotia Human Rights Commission. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Monsieur le Président, une date ultérieure, je demanderai l'adoption de la résolution suivante. Attendu que la colonie de la jeunesse acadienne, ou la CGA, un camp d'été pour les jeunes de la région de Clare, célèbre son 50e anniversaire en 2010. Attendu qu'au fil des années, la CGA a toujours été un effort communautaire dirigé et appuyé par les bénévoles de la région de Clare, donc 250 bénévoles qui sont dévoués à la collecte de fonds cette année. Et attendu que les dames patronesses de la CGA travaillent maintenant avec diligence, en collaboration avec les partenaires et la communauté pour rétablir le camp et assurer sa continuité. Par conséquent, il est résolu que les membres de cette Assemblée félicitent les dames patronesses de la CGA à l'occasion du 50e anniversaire de la colonie de la jeunesse acadienne et les remercient pour leurs importantes contributions au leadership et à la qualité de vie des jeunes de notre communauté. Et Monsieur le Président, je demande l'adoption de cette résolution sans préavis et sans débat. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas 2010 marked the 50th anniversary for La Colonie de la Jeunesse Acadienne, or La CGA, a summer camp for youths in Clare, and whereas over the years, La CGA remains a community effort directed and supported by volunteers from Clare, with over 250 volunteers this year dedicated to fundraising. And whereas les dames patronesses de la CGA are now working diligently with its partners in the community in rebuilding the camp and keep its spirit alive, therefore be resolved that members of this House of Assembly congratulate les dames patronesses de la CGA on the occasion of their 50th anniversary of La Colonie de la Jeunesse Acadienne and thank them for their valuable contribution to the leadership and quality of life for the young people in our community. And Mr. Speaker, I would ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Victoria the Lakes.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Badek Area Business and Tourism Association is well underway with planned activities for 2010. And whereas the association held its annual meeting about a month ago with Glenn MacDonald as president, and whereas the association is presently spending the majority of its time focusing energy and money on marketing Badek as a pristine tourist destination. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly join me in recognizing the Badek Area Business and Tourism Association for its concerted effort in wanting to make 2010 summer tourist season for the local area the very best. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Halifax, Citadel, Sable Island.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Halifax has always been at the centre of a proud and vibrant maritime brewing tradition, and whereas Garrison Brewery is continuing this tradition by producing premium ales and introducing craft beers which have garnered national and international attention, and whereas Garrison Brewery recently was awarded gold for their Irish Red Ale and Imperial Pale Ale, and silver for their Hopyard Pale and Winter Warmer at the 2010 World Beer Championships, therefore be it resolved that this House of Assembly congratulates Garrison Brewery on their recent gold and silver awards at the 2010 World Beer Championships and wishes them continuing success as world leaders in the movement to brew full-flavoured, all-natural, preservative-free ales. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Bedford Birch Cove.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Dr. Rob Brownstone is a Bedford neurosurgeon and Dalhousie University professor, and whereas Dr. Brownstone and an international team of researchers have discovered a group of nerve cells critical to regulating how much force muscles use when they perform movements, and whereas this discovery could lead to breakthroughs in the treatment of spinal cord injuries and amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or Lou Gehrig's disease, among other conditions. Therefore, be it resolved that the members of this House congratulate Dr. Rob Brownstone and his colleagues at Dalhousie University, the University of St. Andrews in Scotland, and Columbia University in New York on their discovery and wish them many eureka moments in their future research. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Inverness.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Don and Margie Beaton won the 2010 East Coast Music Award for Traditional Recording of the Year for their recording Taste of Gaelic, and whereas the Beatons are fine exponents of the best and brightest musical talents from across Atlantic Canada, and whereas the ECMA win will expose them to a broader audience and further increase their profile. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly congratulate Don and Margie Beaton on their ECMA win and wish them continued success. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm reading this resolution on behalf of the member for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas on February 15th, the Tallahassee Community School in Eastern Passage began a two-week celebration of the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver, British Columbia, and whereas their celebrations included highlights from the events and a variety of activities such as Olympic bingo and outdoor play, and whereas on February 26th, the closing day for the Vancouver Olympics, each class wore colours from different nations that participated in the 2010 Olympics. Therefore, be it resolved that this House of Assembly commend Tallahassee Community School for their outstanding demonstration of community spirit and Canadian pride during the 2010 Olympic Games in Vancouver, British Columbia. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded, nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Digby Annapolis.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas over the past month, the newly formed Cornwallis Community Gardens Association has chosen a piece of ground for its new community garden, had it plowed and spread with lime, and whereas the association is now accepting applications for citizens of all areas for summer garden plots at nominal cost, and whereas the aim of the association is to create opportunities opportunities for seniors to pass on accumulated knowledge and experience to other generations through the creation of the community garden. Therefore, be it resolved, the members of the House of Assembly congratulate the Cornwallis Community Gardens Association on their new community garden and wish them much success in the future. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice, passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Leader of the Progressive Conservative Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the DeBert Military Museum in Colchester County is one of the most important Canadian military bases of the Second World War, is located on one of the most important Canadian military bases of the Second World War, and whereas the camp, as it was known in those days, was the staging area for troops before they shipped overseas during the war, and it was used for training and had 3,000 to 4,000 soldiers pass through per month, and whereas the new president of the DeBert Military Museum, Gordon Weatherby, a military historian, is passionate about keeping this history alive at this not-for-profit facility, which is operated strictly by fundraising, donations, memberships, and grants. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of the House of Assembly show their appreciation to a museum whose purpose is to encourage people to remember what has been done for us by our military. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Pictou East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The following resolution will be read for the member of Cape Breton Nova. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas May 3rd, 2010, 4 pet heroes were inducted into the Purina Animal Hall of Fame, and whereas Chance, a Dalmatian Fox Terrier mix from South Bar, Cape Breton, led searchers to James Delory after he was lost in the woods. And whereas even though James passed away, his faithful companion Chance stayed by his side throughout the ordeal. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House salute Chance, a child's best friend and a true hero, on this induction into the Purina Animal Hall of Fame. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Clare.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Stan Doucette Flower Shop, located in Meteghan Centre, is celebrating 40 years in business this year, and whereas Stan has always provided the people of Clare and surrounding area with outstanding services throughout the years, and whereas Stan Doucette Flower Shop has made a significant contribution to the economy of Clare, therefore be resolved that members of this House of Assembly congratulate Stan Doucette on his 40th anniversary and wish him all the best in the years to come. Mr. Speaker, I would ask waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Argyll.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the shortage of doctors in southwest Nova Scotia is leaving thousands without access to a family doctor, and whereas people are forced to go to the emergency rooms to seek consultations from a doctor for usually minor ailments that a family doctor would normally address, and whereas the former government came up with innovative solutions to address the family doctor shortage with the implementation of a foreign doctors working with the Ocean View Family Clinic and the Harbour View Family Clinic. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly ask the Minister of Health to immediately make the lack of access to family doctors in southwest Nova Scotia a top priority in her department. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passes without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Member for Queens.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Nova Scotia's NDP government is committed to keeping communities strong, and whereas the Emergency Services Provider Fund through Service Nova Scotia Municipal Relations provided $15,000 to the Liverpool Fire Department in Queens County. And whereas these funds will allow this volunteer fire department to purchase much needed new equipment so that they can continue to provide the important fire service to Queens. Therefore, be it resolved that the House of Assembly recognizes the importance of the Emergency Service Provider Fund to all of our volunteer fire departments, including the Liverpool Fire Department of Queens County. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Kings West.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Canadian Council of Snowmobile Organization named Annapolis Valley Lake and Ridge Runners as winners of the Snowmobile Club of the Year Award for Canada, and whereas the Annapolis Valley Lake and Ridge Runners has benefited from outstanding leadership and a membership committed to best practices which have been instrumental in the club receiving national recognition, and whereas the Annapolis Valley Lake and Ridge Runners have a long history of being good stewards of the environment, promoting safety for all riders while enjoying the club benefit of cultivating enjoyment with family and friends. Therefore, be it resolved, members of this House of Assembly congratulate the Annapolis Valley Lake and Ridge Runners on being named Canada's Snowmobile Club of the Year. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice, passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Special Olympics Nova Scotia Cape Breton region has approximately 65 athletes participating in their programs, and whereas Lynette Sampson is a gifted swimmer who is joining the Nova Scotia Special Olympics team at the 2010 Summer Games in London, Ontario in July, and whereas Lynette was chosen by the Cape Breton Special Olympics as their top female athlete of the year at an award ceremony at the Horizon Achievement Centre in Sydney. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly congratulate Lynette Sampson for being named the top female athlete of the Cape Breton Special Olympics team and wish her the very best of luck in the national competition in London this summer. And Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Truro Bible Hill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas John Shaw is a first-year student in the digital animation program at the Nova Scotia Community College Truro campus, and whereas Mr. Shaw has been successfully taking part in animation competitions resulting in either bronze or gold awards for the past 4 years, and whereas Mr. Shaw recently won first place in the 2D animation competition through the Nova Scotia Skills competition held at the Truro campus, therefore, be it resolved that the Nova Scotia Legislature congratulates John Shaw on winning first place in the 2D animation competition and wishes him success as he studies and works toward a career in digital animation. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Bedford Birch Cove.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to read this resolution on behalf of the member for Dartmouth East. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I should move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the University of King's College in Halifax is Canada's oldest chartered university with a current student population of 1,100, and whereas Dr. William Bill Barker is currently the 22nd president of the University of King's College, and whereas after 8 years of tireless support of university education at King's, Dr. Barker will retire from his post as president of the university in June 2011. Therefore, Therefore, be it resolved that members of the House of Assembly thank Dr. Barker for his years of dedicated service to the University of King's College, offer congratulations on his accomplishments during his career as president, and wish him success in his future endeavours. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Hants West.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Courtney Smith's Windsor Rink captured the Nova Scotia Dominion Women's Curling Club Championship held at the Windsor Curling Club in late February. And whereas Courtney is the proud daughter of Garnet Gunn and Sandy Smith of Windsor, and in winning the championship defeated 15 other club teams from across Nova Scotia. And whereas with the victory, Smith and her teammates Heather Ross, Abby Miller and Shelley Sampson have advanced to the 3rd Annual Dominion Insurance Canadian Club Curling Championship in November in Charlottetown. Therefore be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly recognize the championship curling abilities of the Windsor-based team and wish them every success as they prepare and then participate in the Canadian Women's Club Curling Championship later this fall in the Cradle of Confederation. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Eastern Shore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the member for the Legislative Assembly of Cumberland North, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas 14-year-old Ryan McIntosh recently made the move from Amherst to North Carolina to pursue his dream of becoming a professional race car driver. And whereas Ryan took a huge step forward when he signed as the first development driver with BAM Racing in its 8th season in NASCAR Sprint Cup racing. And whereas racing co-owner Beth Ann Morgenthau says she chose Ryan because of his proven talent and the drive that he has exhibited at such a young age. Therefore be it resolved that the House of Assembly extend our congratulations to Amherst's Ryan McIntosh for his successes to date with the racing and wishes him the very best in his career with BAM Racing. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Contrary-minded nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Bedford Birch Cove.
Mr. Speaker, I'm reading this resolution on behalf of my colleague from Dartmouth East. Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future day I should move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas events for the 7th Annual Scotiabank Blue Nose Marathon will begin May 21st and will close May 23rd, and whereas the Blue Nose Marathon is the largest annual race weekend in Atlantic Canada with over 8,000 participants, and whereas several races and events for all ages are scheduled to take place in Halifax and Dartmouth throughout the weekend to promote healthy and active living, therefore be it resolved that members of the House of Assembly join me in congratulating the athletes who will participate in the 2010 Scotiabank Blue Nose Marathon and thank the volunteers for organizing and sustaining such a positive event in our community. Mr. Speaker, I ask for waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Inverness.
Mr. Speaker, I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas Sandy and Deannie Rankin of Port Hood recently opened up their restaurant called Sandy Annie's Bakery and Tea Room, and whereas Deannie's many years of cooking experience and recent diploma in culinary arts from the Nova Scotia Community College, combined with Sandy's recent retirement, enabled them to fulfill a long-held goal. And whereas the friendly service and excellent food have people all over Inverness County singing its praises, therefore be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly congratulate Sandy and Deannie Rankin on the opening of their new restaurant and wish them many years of continued success. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Contrary-minded nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Hammonds Plains Upper Sackville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the physical activity is an important part of a child's life, and whereas fundraising can provide kids a sporting chance, raising financial support to help offset registration fees, and whereas on May 29, 2010, Canadian Tire Jumpstart will hold its second annual Jumpstart Day, which is a national campaign to raise awareness about the importance of providing each child an opportunity to be involved in organized sports and recreation. Therefore, be it resolved that the House of Assembly congratulate Canadian Tire Jumpstart and all Canadian Tire dealers on their work in the community and fundraising efforts for their local Jumpstart chapter that will give kids a sporting chance. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed?
Agreed.
All those in favour signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Lunenburg.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the 2011 Games will be the largest sporting event in Halifax's history and the city's first Canada Winter Games, with our country's best and brightest competing in over 20 sports, attracting thousands of visitors, VIPs, officials, and media. And whereas the 2011 Canada Games Torch program celebrates the unique culture of Nova Scotia in the very community that helped shape and define it, generating awareness and excitement in each region leading up to the Games. And whereas the town of Lunenburg is one of 4 Nova Scotia communities that will be welcoming the 2011 Torch when it arrives on a naval vessel today, May 10th, at the Lunenburg waterfront, with a celebration that includes local students, musicians, performances, and a torch run through the old town of Lunenburg. Therefore, be it resolved that this House of Assembly recognizes the importance of the Canada Winter Games and its impact on athletes in Nova Scotia, and commends the town of Lunenburg for hosting the Canada Games 2011 Torch on its arrival today, May 10th, at the Lunenburg waterfront. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Kings North.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'll be reading this for the member for Guysborough Sheet Harbour. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas in 2010, the Sherbrooke Garage, under the management of Scotty and Vi Fraser, will officially celebrate its 100th anniversary. And whereas this business first began as a livery stable in 1909, and in the 1930s changed its name to Sherbrooke Taxi and Garage, and whereas the Sherbrooke Garage has provided employment and service for 4 generations of families, therefore be it resolved that the members of this House of Assembly congratulate Scotty and Vi Fraser and the entire Fraser family on the 100th anniversary of the historic Sherbrooke Garage, and wish the Frasers continued success in their future endeavours. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Lunenburg West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And again, I'm reading this on behalf of the MLA for Cole Harbour Eastern Passage. I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Knights of Columbus Basketball Free Throw Championships is held annually at local, district, and provincial competitions, and whereas last year more than 179,000 sharpshooters participated in over 3,000 local competitions, and whereas this year the Knights of Columbus number 10486 in Eastern Passage held their district free throw competition where winners Kenzie Eddy, Alexandra Hamilton, Nicole Wyatt, Logan Fowler, Dakota Clyde Dixon, and Amanda McDonald demonstrated their free throw skills along with all other participants. Therefore, be it resolved that this Nova Scotia House of Assembly commend Knights of Columbus number 10486 in Eastern Passage for their ongoing support to Kenzie Eddy, Alexandra Hamilton, Nicole Wyatt, Logan Fowler, Dakota Clyde Dixon, and Amanda McDonald of the Eastern Passage area through their annual Knights of Columbus basketball free throw program, and congratulate all participants. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Inverness.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hereby give notice that on a future date I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce honoured Anna Guzadal and her late husband Wladsław with a Lifetime Achievement Award on April 30th, 2010. And whereas Ms. Guzadal worked alongside her husband for many years at the family business, founded Port Hawkesbury's Girl Guiding Movement, and was an early member of the Advisory Council on the Status of Women. And whereas Ms. Guzadal
Honourable
and her
member,
late
I'm going to
husband...
ask if I can interrupt for a second. Is this your second or your third resolution you're reading today?
I'm reading this on behalf of the member from Cape Breton North.
Oh, okay. Fine, fine. Continue.
And whereas Ms. Guzadal and her late husband are both highly regarded in their community as good employers who possess a high ethical standard and are well-deserving of, and she is well-deserving of this important award. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly congratulate Anna Guzadal on receiving the Strait Area Chamber of Commerce Lifetime Achievement Award and thank her for her commitment to her community. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without
There
debate.
has been a request for a waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The Honourable Minister of Health on an introduction.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'd like to draw the attention of members of the House to the East Gallery, where this evening we're joined by Dr. Louise Parker. Dr. Parker is a professor of pediatrics and medicine at Dalhousie University and the principal investigator for the Atlantic Path. The Atlantic Path is the largest cancer research project ever undertaken in Atlantic Canada. The project is collecting lifestyle information, biological samples, and physical measurements from volunteers, men and women, between the ages of 35 to 69. It's a landmark study, Mr. Speaker, into how genetics, environment, and lifestyle contribute to the development of cancer. Atlantic Path will track participants' health for 30 years through cancer registries, hospital records, and other health-related databases. The project has already recruited thousands of volunteers so far and is looking for a total of 30,000 participants. The information Dr. Parker and her team obtain through this study will provide an enormous bank of information about cancer, which will be used to help develop better education, treatment, and prevention methods. Dr. Parker is originally from the UK, where she was the Director of Research and Development at the National Institute for Clinical Excellence in London. So I'd ask Dr. Parker to rise and receive the warm welcome of the House, and I thank her for being here this evening.
Well, we welcome our special guests here this afternoon. I'll recognize the honourable member for Pictou East.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For the member for Cape Breton Nova, I hereby give notice that on a future day I shall move the adoption of the following resolution. Whereas on Tuesday, May the 4th, 2010, Phyllis Arthur was presented with an award at the Canadian Union of Public Employees Convention in Sydney in honour of her late son, Crossing Guard Extraordinaire George Arthur, the pride of Whitney Pier. And whereas for 11 years, braving the elements day in and day out at the corner of Gottingen and Russell Streets in Halifax, George Arthur risked life and limb to stop traffic to ensure the safety of local school children. And whereas through his efforts and involvement in organizing crossing guards in 2007, George Arthur's legacy will live on for years to come. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House salute George Arthur's dedication and commitment to his community, ensuring youngsters have a chance to enjoy being a child en route to achieving their full potential at school. Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? All those in favour signify by saying aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. The honourable member for Cape Breton West.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, I'll be reading this on behalf of the member for Cape Breton North. Whereas Sam McCormick of Sydney was awarded the National RBC Junior A Scholarship for 2009-2010, and whereas the $5,000 educational scholarship is presented to an individual possessing impressive academic achievement, hockey achievement, and community involvement, and the scholarship falls on the heels of a $1,000 scholarship he received from the Maritime Junior A Hockey League earlier in the spring. And whereas, on top of his impressive on-ice achievements, Sam is equally impressive in the classroom as he is currently studying at Dalhousie University and hoping to eventually study medicine. Therefore, be it resolved that all members of this House of Assembly congratulate Sam McCormick on being awarded the National RBC Junior A Scholarship and wish him well on his future academic endeavours. And Mr. Speaker, I request waiver of notice and passage without debate.
There has been a request for waiver. Is it agreed? Agreed. All those in favour signify by saying aye. Aye. Those against say nay. The motion is carried. Any further notices of motion? The Honourable Minister of Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I was wondering if we could take a 5-minute recess at this time.
Is it agreed?
Agreed.
We'll have a short recess. Session back to order, and I'll recognize the Honourable Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we wish you to now leave the chair and the House resolve itself in the whole House on bills.
Carried.
Order, please. The Committee on the Whole House on Bills is called to order. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could you please call Bill 50, or Private Members Public Bills, Bill number 50, Correctional Service Act and Police Act.
Bill number 50, Correctional Services Act and Police Act.
This bill is amended. It still contains two clauses. The first one is deleted. Clause 1 is deleted and replaced by another one, which reads, Chapter 37 of the Acts of 2005, the Correctional Services Act is amended by adding immediately after Section 16 the following section, 16, capital A. The Minister shall approve and implement uniform training programs and guidelines for employees who work with individuals with mental disabilities. And Clause 2, the words in the subsection 1(a), the words subject to subsection 1(b), in brackets, the Minister shall develop and implement, that is removed or deleted and is replaced by the Minister shall approve. And the second part of that clause, that numbered 1(b), is deleted. And that is the bill.
Thank you. Shall the clause as amended be carried? Carried. Carried. Shall the title carry? Carried. Shall the bill carry? Carried. Thank you. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could you please call Public Bills number 62, Nova Scotia Hospital Foundation Act.
Public Bills, Bill number 62, Nova Scotia Hospital Foundation Act.
This bill is unamended and has one clause.
One clause. Shall the clause carry? Carry. Shall the title carry? Carry. Shall the bill carry? Carry. Thank you. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, could you please call Public Bills number 67, the Halifax Regional Municipality Charter.
Bill number 67, Halifax Regional Municipality Charter.
Another bill that's unamended, 10 clauses. That is the bill.
Thank you. Shall the clause carry? Carry. Shall the title carry? Carry. Shall the bill carry? Thank you. There you go. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
You never return my call. Mr. Speaker, or Mr. Chair, we should now rise and report progress.
Is it agreed?
Agreed.
Agreed. Order, please. The Chairman of the Committee of the Whole House on Bill reports.
The committee has met and considered 3 bills. Bills numbered 50, 62, and 67. The Chairman's been instructed to recommend them to favorable consideration of the House, each without amendment.
Order that these bills be read a third time on a future day. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with the concurrence of the House, I would ask if it was possible if we could move these 3 bills, 50, 62, and 67, for a third reading to be done right now.
Is it agreed? It is agreed. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, could you please call private and local bills private members' public bills for third reading, Correctional Service, Bill 50, the Correctional Service Act, and Police Act.
Thank you. For third reading, private members' public bill, Bill number 50, Correctional Services Act, and Police Act. The Honourable Member for Richmond.
Mr. Speaker, it is with pleasure that I do move third reading of this bill, and again I want to thank the Minister of Justice and the Government House Leader for calling forward this piece of legislation, which quite appropriately last week when it was called, it was Mental Health Week being recognized here in Nova Scotia, and I think this bill is meant to provide the necessary training to our correctional officers and to our police officers to assist them in dealing with Nova Scotians that may suffer from one form or another of mental illness, and have the ability of being able to recognize that and see the factors leading to that in those dealings. This certainly was a recommendation which we brought forward some time ago after some high-profile incidents in this province, very unfortunate incidents, and we're certainly hoping that this is something that is going to be able to assist both our police officers and our correctional service officers as they move forward on this. Mr. Speaker, at law amendments, I don't have it with me right now, but at law amendments I did read an email from the Executive Director of the Nova Scotia Schizophrenia Society where they indicated their full support for this bill. Unfortunately, they were unable to attend law amendments due to many of the activities and meetings taking place during Mental Health Week here in Nova Scotia, but they certainly did want to put it on the record their support for this legislation. So I do want to thank all of my colleagues from all sides of this House for supporting this bill, and I'm certainly hoping that this is an indication of many more opposition bills that will be considered by this government in the future. And with that, Mr. Speaker, I move third reading.
The question's been called. The motion is for a third reading on Bill number 50, Correctional Services Act and Police Act. Is the House ready for the question? Question has been called. All those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Contrary-minded, nay. Motion carried.
Bill 50, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 37 of the Acts of 2005, the Correctional Services Act, and Chapter 31 of the Acts of 2004, the Police Act.
Order that the bill do pass, or the title be as read by the clerk, in order that the bill be engrossed. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, could you please call public bills for third reading? Bill 62, the Nova Scotia Hospital Foundation Act.
Public bills for third reading. Bill number 62, Nova Scotia Hospital Foundation Act. Question's been called. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Against? Motion carried.
Bill 62, entitled An Act to Repeal Chapter 314 of the Revised Statutes 1989, the Nova Scotia Hospital Foundation Act.
Order that the bill do pass, or that the title be as read by the clerk, in order that the bill be engrossed. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, could you please call Bill for third reading, Bill 67, the Halifax Regional Municipality Charter.
Bill number 67, Halifax Regional Municipality Charter. Question has been called. Is the House ready for the question? All those in favour of the motion, please say aye. Against? Motion carried.
Bill 67, entitled An Act to Amend Chapter 39 of the Acts of 2008, the Halifax Regional Municipality Charter.
Order that the bill do pass, order that the title be as read by the clerk, order that the bill be engrossed. The Honourable the Government House Leader.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we should now call address and reply to the speech from the throne.
Addressed and reply to the speech from the throne.
Yeah. Yes.
An introduction? An introduction first. The honourable member from Hammonds Plain, Upper Sackville.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'd like to draw the attention of the House to the East Gallery. We have a resident from Hammonds Plains here, Christina Parker. She's involved in pretty much every organization she can be in Hammonds Plains, so if we could give her a warm applause.
We will now move to the reply to speech from the throne. The Honourable Minister of Service, Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations.
Thank you. Mr. Speaker, it is my pleasure and honour to rise in my place to deliver an address in response to the speech from the throne. As a new member of the House of Assembly elected last June, this is my first opportunity to deliver such a speech in this historic House as the member for beautiful King South, responding to the speech delivered by the Lieutenant Governor, May-Ann Francis. Mr. Speaker, I would like to take a moment to offer my sincere and unwaning thanks to my constituents in King South who have afforded myself this historic and honourable opportunity to represent them in the House of Assembly. Mr. Speaker, I'd especially like to thank the dedicated team of party members in King South who assisted myself in achieving our historic victory here last June. We have an active and dedicated constituency association who have laboured tirelessly for many years in the political trenches. I would never term my election as my victory, as it was as much a victory for those members over the years that have played a role in supporting our cause as it is a victory for myself. I would especially like to recognize some of the women who are politically active in King South and who have paved the way for the election last year. I'd like to mention Evelyn Garbry, yes, who passed away a number of years ago, yes, who was an icon in our community because of her work in starting up Mermaid Theatre along with Lee Lewis in Wolfville. She was a candidate for our party in a time when women had very little success in electoral politics. I'd also like to say that not only was Evelyn Garbry an icon, she was my friend, and I actually lived with Evelyn Garbry for a number of years as I was a student of hers when I took my theatre arts degree. I also would like to acknowledge the work of Mary DeWolf, who was a candidate for our party no less than 3 times. And I would also like to acknowledge the dedication of Bob Levy for paving the way those many years ago for me to be here today. And David Mangle. David is currently now a councillor in Wolfville, and he was the last candidate for our party in King South and works tirelessly still on my behalf and on the behalf of Nova Scotians. I extend my heartfelt thanks to all of them. Now, Mr. Speaker, within this address as a response to the speech from the throne, I shall touch upon a number of areas. First, I will offer some specific comments in respect to the throne speech and the 4-year plan we are embarking on as government. Second, Mr. Speaker, I shall speak about my departmental responsibilities and priorities as Minister of Service Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations, the Office of Immigration, and the Emergency Management Office. And last, but certainly not least, I will speak about my constituency, King South, specifically some of the interesting things about King South, as well as interesting happenings in my constituency. Mr. Speaker, since the address by the Lieutenant Governor Francis delivered on April, I have spoken with residents in King South, many of them. They have indicated to me that they believe our government is on the right track. We are being fiscally prudent, looking to bring our finances back to balance, while also providing assistance to those who require it, as well as pragmatic and realistic vision for the future of this province. Mr. Speaker, we are making the right decisions for Nova Scotian families right now and into the future. Hear, hear. We are also fulfilling our commitments to Nova Scotians, and I'm proud to say, as Minister, I've had a hand in ensuring some of these. Soon after our party's election into government last June, my primary department, Service Nova Scotia Municipal Relations, initiated the New Home Construction Rebate, a program which has helped roughly 1,500 families purchase or construct new homes in this province with a rebate up to $7,000. While this was a one-time program designed to address the need for economic stimulus, it has certainly been beneficial as it helped to keep our skilled tradespeople here in this province working. Mr. Speaker, my department is also responsible for the delivery of Your Energy Rebate Program, and in particular, the rollback of the 8% increase in HST for all residential electricity users in this province. This has saved Nova Scotian families more than $15 million, a direct benefit to all families in this province. Money in the pocket. Service Nova Scotia and Municipal Relations, along with Transportation and Infrastructure Renewal, has also helped to fulfill our commitment to leverage as many federal dollars for capital expenditures. Our focus has been on municipalities. And in total, we have spent over $20 million in order to leverage over $23 million in federal dollars and over $23 million in municipal dollars as well. This has resulted in new or modernized infrastructure, which is very important to those communities where this money has been spent, and to those workers who have had the opportunity to work on those projects. Mr. Speaker, Service Nova Scotia is also working presently on the development and implementation of a suburban priorities team, whose purpose will be to focus on the specific needs of suburban dwellers, such as transit, road conditions, and access to proper recreational facilities. And we expect an announcement with respect to this commitment very soon.
Hear, hear. Hear, hear.
Most Nova Scotians don't recognize the plethora of programs and services offered by my department. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I suspect there are likely members of this House that are not fully aware of the breadth of this department's mandate. From the Residential Tenancies Act to the many registries we are responsible for, joint stocks, motor vehicles, and land, to name a few, to the multiple rebate programs, to individuals, to our support for transit authorities, and to our direct and collaborative relationship with municipalities from one end of this province to the other. Service Nova Scotia and municipal relation touches the lives of all Nova Scotians. While Service Nova Scotia keeps me on my toes, I have other offices which are also doing great work as well, Mr. Speaker. The small, yet mighty and effective Office of Immigration has been working on the development of a new immigration strategy in light of our commitment to double our immigration targets. My ministerial assistant, the Honourable Member for Halifax Citadel Sable Island, has graciously taken the lead in the development of our new strategy, along with members of our Immigration Advisory Council and members of staff in the department. This strategy will be robust and bold, building upon our past experience as well as the experience of other provinces. We know that we are facing an impending, if not immediate, population challenge, and immigration is a productive means to address this challenge. In order for this to be truly successful, however, we must be sure we extend the proverbial welcome mat to newcomers, welcoming them to our communities and helping to facilitate their settlement. We must ensure that Nova Scotia as a whole is a welcoming community if we are to succeed in building our population through immigration. You will hear more about this plan in the coming month.
All right.
Specifically, the Office of Immigration recently expanded its nominee program to include a stream for non-dependent children of Nova Scotia nominees. The aim of this new stream is to help to reunite families, assisting the children of current nominees in obtaining candidacy for immigration in this province. The update on this new stream has been promising, and we hope to be able to introduce new streams with the new strategy. I'd like to touch upon the work of the Emergency Management Office as well.
Please do.
Just recently, Craig McLaughlin, the Deputy Head of EMO, retired from the organization after years of hard work and dedication to the safety and security of Nova Scotians. His determination is in large measure why our EMO is revered in the world of emergency management. I'm sure that there will be little rest for Craig in his retirement because he has done such a good job with EMO. I know some organization is going to grab him quickly. I can say with great certainty as Minister that in the tragic event of a major disaster in this province, we are served very well by this organization. In my time since becoming Minister, I have encountered a handful of situations which has demonstrated that these folks are ready, and it is because of the great planning and experience of the team we have in place.
And good leadership.
Thank you. I can say, Mr. Speaker, that I am very proud to work with these fine people in all of my departments. Now, Mr. Speaker, I'd like to talk in some detail about Kings South.
Oh, yes.
The place I represent in this House of Assembly. From Cambridge to the Hants border, from the Lunenburg line to Grand Prairie, Kings South is a treasure, as are the people who reside there.
Yes.
I am blessed to be from a place in Nova Scotia with so much talent. With Acadia University located within the beautiful town of Wolfville, we are home to many interesting people who both work at the university or who study there, as I did, and which is what drew me to the area in the first place. There are fine restaurants, lively pubs, and retailers in the area, and many young families are drawn to the way of life in our community, along with the relative peace and serenity of valley life. I must acknowledge the hard work of the president of Acadia University, Ray Ivany.
Hear, hear.
Ray brings a strong track record to his present duties at Acadia, and as an alumnus of this institution, I am happy to see it in such good hands. Now, I have met Ray on several occasions since taking office, but I see him in the community. He is out and about as much as I am. He is everywhere, and I am also extremely confident in his leadership to move this institution forward. As I just said, I came to the Valley as a result of attending Acadia University. What kept me was, in large extent to the area, was the way of life. I made a life for myself there as a teacher, raising a family of 4 children, and I lived for part of that time after moving out of Wolfville and Berwick, but I now currently reside in Colebrook. I stayed in Kings County in part because of the education system, which I know from firsthand experience is advanced and capable of providing the supports that children require. Along with that, the beauty of the Valley, the diversity of the activities and events, and also I stayed because of the solid sense of community.
Here, here.
Prior to my election last year, I taught for 30 years in the public school system.
You're not that old.
I know,
You're not that old.
26 of those years I taught at Colebrook School. I found it interesting, though, in the last couple of years I was teaching the children of children that I have taught. I can't talk about King South and not talk about agriculture, though. We are the breadbasket of Nova Scotia, with some of the most productive farmland in Nova Scotia. This isn't due to the microclimate of the Annapolis Valley. It is also due to the hard work and determination of the farmers who have worked the land over the years, investing their time and their knowledge. About 90% of the food produced in this province is grown in Kings County.
Whoa. Yeah.
Mr. Speaker, I am committed to a sustainable and vibrant industry. I want you to know that I feel that Nova Scotians have been paying a price for cheap imported food, and we need to make sure that we celebrate and support our farmers. Many of us can say, "Who's your doctor? Who's your dentist?" I want people to say and answer as, "Who is your farmer?"
Yes.
I'd like to have a bumper sticker. Yeah. Who's your MLA? Who's your farmer? Mr. Speaker, I'd like to talk about some of the primary farm families in our region, and I know I won't be able to name all of them because it is a vibrant community. I know the member opposite and my honourable member here with me. We share many of the farmers in the area. Many people visit the Valley to partake of the beauty, and as you travel through Greenwich, you're going to stop at the Elderkin Farm Market, and you're going to buy delicious products there, or while you stop there, you also might want to pick your own apples. Now, the Elderkin's Farm Market also has a U-pick of a different kind, too, in the fall. You can pick your own pumpkins. And I know many of you here would like to know they also make a fine, hard cider along with a sweet cider. So if you're going to visit there, I would advise you to take your camera if you're there in the fall. It's absolutely beautiful. The field across from the farm market is filled with a field of pumpkins. It's beautiful. And it's also beautiful when you go by just around the Halloween time to watch children out carrying their big pumpkins in off the field.
The pumpkin people.
Well, that's Kentville. Yeah. Then you can stop at Sterling's Farm Market. That farm was established in 1917. Now, if you stop at that farm market, you're not only going to pick up fresh fruits and vegetables, but you're going to also pick up fantastic jams, jellies, and pickles. And if you're not up in the valley and you want to buy some of the Sterling products, they're also available at Pete's Fruitique. Sterling's does a great export to Great Britain and also the United States, and they also have been increasing their business into the Caribbean and the Middle East. Now, I'm going to say the name of a place I know everyone here knows, because if you go to the valley, I know everyone stops at Henniger's. Henniger's has been a family operation for 62 years. This is a farm market that boasts a bakery, a fish and chip stand, which is a new addition, 2.5 kilometers of nature walks. Now, when you stop there, you can browse the store for giftware, plants, baked goods, or you can line up at the famous ice cream area there. Who hasn't stopped there? And many times. Many times. So you can take your ice cream and then you can go for a walk through the nature trail. And as I drove through there as I was coming down today, I also noticed for those people that golf, they have farmers golf there now. And I also would like to say that Henniger's Farm Market was cited in Reader's Digest as one of the best farm markets in Canada.
Here, 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 here.
Then if you travel on a little bit more, you're going to meet up with Bishops, and that's a family, the name's Bishops, and they have a place called Noggin's Corner, which is also in Greenwich. It's owned and operated by Arvid Bishop and his sons Andrew and Sterling. Their mixed farm operation includes a variety of homegrown fruits and vegetables, and a dairy and a bustling year-round farm market. With 175 acres of orchards stretched along the banks of the Cornwallis River, they grow 52 variety of apples, 52, as well as pears, peaches, plums, and raspberries. They also cultivate 80 acres of crops, including sweet corn, squash, pumpkins, cucumbers, peas, and peppers.
Oh, I'm starting.
They have a state-of-the-art warehouse which allows them to store fresh, locally grown fruits and vegetables. They also have the capacity to house another 1,500 bins in cold storage. They have an modern ultra-low oxygen, it's called ULO, technology, and that ensures that you can enjoy crisp produce year-round. Very innovative in the valley.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. We also have other farmers, the Forsyths, which is a family, and the Palmeters. The families that I'm citing here are long-standing farm families that are working generations in the valley. Another area, which is out my way in the Cambridge area, is Webster's, and I know many people go there to pick their strawberries and their raspberries. But I want to say something about Webster's, the Webster's farm. Webster's, when I first moved to the valley, when I used to travel up the one, was tobacco fields. And that was what their main source of farming was, tobacco. And when when there was a change, they adapted with the times, and they are extremely well known across Nova Scotia as one of the best U-picks. They have the best strawberries and raspberries, and you can stop there, and many people come up from the city to get their strawberries and raspberries in the spring. Yeah. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of nods here. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with the Webster's farm. Now, in my community, I have Scotian Gold. And then Scotian Gold is another place that's very well known for its ice cream too. But the thing that a lot of people don't know about Scotian Gold, it's a producer-owned apple cooperative, and it helps to maximize the growers' yields and revenues. This is a cooperative that consists of 55 committed growers, and their president at this time is a man named David Cudmore. I've met with him many times. He's another person that's out in the community and meeting people. He's also the president of their Chamber of Commerce in the area. Scotian Gold may be known for its ice cream, as I've said, but the country store is a thriving enterprise for supplies for the farmers, for their crops, their livestock, carries seeds, great place to get your work gear. Now, a lot of people there go there because they have a tremendous amount of pet supplies. I know I stopped there for my dog's pet supplies. It carries a high quality of pet food, and I have to say it's one of my grandson's favorite place because they also stock John Deere toys, and my grandson loves John Deere. Yeah. Now, you can see that there's a diversity of foods produced in Kings County, but really, all in all, when you think of the Annapolis Valley, we always think of apples. Now, part of my weekly schedule is to visit the Wolfville Farmers Market. It started in 1992 with 3 vendors, and it now boasts 50 vendors, and it's a year-round operation. The mission is to provide a fair and direct market revenue for locally produced goods and services in an environment that inspires and nurtures community. I think you've heard me use the word community already today. We have a lot of that in the valley. This market has been operating outdoors in the spring and summer and moves indoors in the winter months at the Student Union Building at Acadia. But soon, it will be making a year-round home at the DeWolf Warehouse owned by the university. There's a warehouse down in the front part of Wolfville, and when Ray Ivany heard that the market was looking for a permanent home, he said, "We have a warehouse. We have a facility." And at this point, there's a partnership between the farmers market. They've provided the warehouse, and with fundraising that's going on, and a contribution by my honourable member here, the Minister of Agriculture, to the tune of $228,000. They will be refurbishing that. Because we recognize the importance of local food. Farm markets are key components of local economic development. So this is a great place to visit year-round. That will be a year-round operation. And it also just shows the collaborative and cooperative nature of the people in my area, where Acadia is working with the community and allowing this to happen. This is fantastic. So I invite all of you up to come on Saturday mornings to pick up your plethora of great food.
Where is that, Minister?
Downtown Wolfville. Downtown Wolfville, yes. We celebrate our main crop each spring, and as you know, that's coming up. Normally in late May or early June, we have the world-renowned Apple Blossom Festival. And this year we're celebrating the 78th year of the festival. So mark it on your calendar, everyone, that May the 26th through May the 31st. As you know, this is a world-class event and a major tourist draw for the area. Now, the festival has the honor of being the only festival in this province that has been incorporated by this legislature. My congratulations go out to all the organizers of the festival for all of their hard work and to the dedication to the celebration of all things Apple.
Are you in it? Are you in it this year?
Yes, we're all going to be, yes. It's on Saturday. I'll get that date to you. While apples remain our top agricultural export, in recent years, Kings County has become very well known for the quality and variety of wines produced from the region's numerous vineyards. Grand Pré is home to Domaine du Grand Pré, and that is under the ownership of Hans-Peter Stutz, which I think many of you might know. And we have a new winery in the area, Murray, with the proprietor being Jonathan Murray. We have Gaspereau Winery, which is the proprietor is Dan Burns. And we have Benjamin Bridge, also in the Gaspereau Valley, which is Jerry McConnell and Dara Gordon. And we have Lacadie Vineyards, under the leadership of Bruce Ewart, and these are all fine wineries, and if anyone notices, I have quite a few in my area. I'm very blessed. The quality of these vineyards, worked by knowledgeable winemakers, are producing fantastic wines, and they are making a name for our region for the quality of this wine. They're winning awards all over the place. I have had the opportunity to visit. I haven't toured all of them, but I have visited all of them, and I can truly say that a winemaking industry in Kings South is something that we all can be proud of here in Nova Scotia. Our region is also well known for the quality of our apple ciders. No surprise given the quality of our apples and also the expertise that is being brought to the valley. Hans Peter makes Stutz hard apple cider. Noggin's Corner, operated by the Bishops, is now producing Tideview vintage cider. And Eldergan's Farm, as I also mentioned, is producing an apple cider. There are plenty of ciders now to choose from. Mr. Speaker, I must recognize that there are time constraints with my address, so I will not be able to mention each and every business. However, there are some that I'd like to highlight for the good work that they're doing in generating the economic activity in my community. Moreover, some of these that I shall make note of are quite innovative. Now, we have 2 coffee cooperatives which are headquartered in King South. Just Us Coffee and Tan Coffee are both cooperatives offering a fair trade alternative to mainstream coffee, and we all love our coffee. Founded in 1995, Just Us was Canada's first fair trade coffee roaster. Their business is centered on 3 pillars: quality product, social, and environmental responsibility. Now, I love their mission. Their mission is, and I quote, "People and the planet before profits."
Here, here.
Quite a novel mission for such a profitable business. They are mainly working with organic fair trade coffee. However, they have also branched out into tea, sugar, and chocolate. But they're all similar to coffee in that they're all organic and they're all fair trade. They use state-of-the-art packaging, which helps keep them maintain the freshness and quality of their coffee. And I was just not getting a nod from my member opposite. Their coffee is very well known. Yes, it's fabulous. You can purchase their coffee in just about any grocery store, including the larger chains, but you can also purchase directly from Just Us Roastery in Wolfville or at one of their cafes. There are 2 locations in King South, Grand Pré and Wolfville, as well as there's a location here in Halifax, just a block away from the legislature. My congratulations go to Jeff Moore, the CEO, as the heart and soul of this successful business, built upon good ethics and business practices. His passion for this and for the people who help to produce this quality coffee from Mexico to Grand Pré is one of the reasons Just Us is doing so well. And that is why we are so proud of him and the work that he is doing. Tan Coffee, another fair trade organic purveyor of quality coffee, is headquartered in Wolfville. Founded by Lei Young, they roast their own coffee, which can be purchased in bean form or in liquid form from any of their cafes. Now, they have cafes in Greenwood, Wolfville, and Toronto. With plans as well, they're going to be expanding into Ontario. These folks have a great business model and are a welcome addition to the economy of our region. Both Just Us and Tan, like the wineries of King South, have contributed to our region being recognized for the quality of the products. Food is important to all of us, and King South is well known for its wonderful restaurants. And this year, Le Caveau, which is the restaurant at Grand Pré Winery, was recognized as Nova Scotia's best restaurant. And we have a chef in the restaurant, The Tempest, which is in Wolfville, and Michael Howell, and he is also working with Slow Food along with other chefs. And I've just lost the Chives restaurant here. Both of those fine chefs are working with Slow Food at Nova Scotia. But Michael Howe was recognized for being an outstanding chef here in Nova Scotia. One of the things I am most proud of in King South is our generosity and caring spirit with respect to how we provide for people with disabilities. There are individuals that often fall through the cracks of society without the proper support and resources. In King South, these individuals have a variety of options available to them, whether they are young and looking for educational options or older individuals looking for meaningful work opportunities. For younger persons with learning disabilities, we have